Another question we broached was this one, that all religions basically teach the same thing. Have any of you ever encountered this objection? I'm just interested to know. Has anyone ever heard this? Look, all faiths teach the things. You're a Christian, that's good for you, but we ultimately all end up at the same place. I'm not surprised. This picture is extremely popular in our culture, mostly because it avoids arguments. We're polite. Canadians are so polite, right? We don't argue. We don't talk about two things, right? Religion and politics, although these days we're talking a lot about politics. Maybe that means we'll start talking about religion more, hopefully. But this picture is just an illustration of really the prevailing mindset in our culture that, look, God is so unimaginably far beyond anything that anyone can comprehend. We're way at the bottom of the mountain, right? That's us. We're just down there. We can't see. I love this photograph because it's such a great illustration of the mountaintop obscured to the climber at the bottom. And what's at the top, anybody knows. So Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, we're all at the bottom of the mountain. We're all taking different paths, but it ultimately ends up in the same spot. Incidentally, if someone were to say this to you, look, God is so far beyond anything anyone can know. No one can know the truth about God, or no one can claim to have the corner on truth about him. What's wrong with that statement in and of itself? Any thoughts? It's ultimately a claim to know something about God, right? God is so much greater than anyone can understand. No one could possibly understand him. How do you know that? Anyway, but this is a question actually I've come across myself. A friend of mine said this very thing to me. I meet with a friend for coffee every so often in town, and he's not a believer, not yet. But he basically said this thing. He said, hey, you know what? He knows I'm a Christian, and he said, I'm okay with that. I think Jesus is great. He said, but I don't. He says, I just can't believe that there's just one way. Because really, I think all religions ultimately lead to God. Here's something to consider. Again, you don't have to be an expert in comparative religion, but a little bit of knowledge can help you. So when it comes to the concept of God, just in those four religions that were on my illustration, in terms of Buddhism, the Buddhist really doesn't believe in a God. Buddhism is really atheistic in its outlook. It really doesn't hold to being that there's any deity necessarily. It's more of a philosophy of living. Whereas in Hinduism, of course, there's millions of gods, millions of deities. But ultimately, in Hinduism, there is this ultimate understanding of divinity, I suppose, or an ultimate principle of existence that is in and through everything that makes up the universe, sometimes referred to as Brahman. Now, in Islam, of course, Islam is rigorously monotheistic. In fact, the chief characteristic of Allah that makes Allah so great and so worthy of veneration and worship is Tawheed, which is really his uniqueness or his individuality, that Allah is one. He's one and there is no other beside him, which is what the Quran reads. And that Allah's will is, of course, revealed in the Quran. Christianity is also monotheistic, but we're Trinitarian monotheists, right? We believe there is one God, but he exists eternally as three persons. So he's tripersonal, but singular in his being. And of course, this God has revealed himself to us in the person of Jesus Christ. Christ is the revelation to us in the flesh so that we can know. He's the revelation of the very glory of God. That's what Paul says in 2 Corinthians 4:4-6. So I had this conversation with my friend, and that was the comment he made. I actually didn't have an answer right on the spot. This was a couple of years ago, and we were sitting in his office, and he said that, and I just, my mind just wasn't clicking. I said, okay, that's really interesting. And I forget what else I said, but we kind of wrapped up and left it from there. Sometimes you might not have an answer. What could you say if someone posed you with a question and you didn't have an answer for it? What would be the best thing to say? Well, I don't know. The best answer you can give is, I don't know, followed by, but you know what, can you leave it with me? And I think if you don't know the answer to a question, I think that's actually a really good opportunity for a couple things. You know what? That's a good question. I've never really thought about that. Can you leave it with me? First of all, I think you're just showing humility and honesty, which in any relationship is a really good thing. And of course, we're wanting to communicate, right? With love and respect. So if you don't know, don't fake it. I don't know, but leave it with me. Here's why that's an opportunity. How many of you find, and I do, how many of you find it's really hard to get into conversations about faith with people? Does anyone find it difficult to get into those conversations? I sure do, because in Canada, we're polite. We don't talk about politics and religion. So what I think that provides, and this is actually what I did with my friend when this happened to me. I didn't have an answer, so I kind of let it go. But when I went away, I thought about it. You know what I should have said, and this always happens, I'm laying in bed at night and I wake up. I should have said this. So the next time we got together for coffee, I sat down and I used that as my entry. I said, hey, you know what? You said something last time we were together that really had got me thinking. And of course he said, well, really? What did I say? I said, you said that, you know what, you thought Jesus was great. You were kind of affirming the fact that, you know, I'm a Christian and you're okay with that. But you said that, but you really think that there can't just be one way to God, that really every religion provides its own way to God ultimately. So what I thought about was the little 4-line chart that I just showed you. I said, here's what, I got thinking about that, and here's what occurred to me. When it comes to just even the most basic and fundamental concept of God, when I think about Buddhism has no concept of God. It's really atheistic. Hinduism's concept of God is kind of it's an indefinable principle of existence. It almost sounds like the Force in Star Wars. It's in and through everything. It binds the universe together. If I wasn't so shy, if I knew you a little better, I would have tried my Yoda impression when I said that. But I don't feel safe enough here yet for that. Not yet, maybe next time. Islam is rigorously monotheistic. In fact, the highest virtue or quality of Allah is his oneness, that there is no other beside Allah, and they're very particular in Islam to say, and he has no offspring. Whereas the Christian view of God is monotheistic, but Trinitarian. We believe in one God in 3 persons. I said, here's the thing that I was thinking about, is that in just those 4 religions, the very basic concept of God in all 4 cases is mutually exclusive. They cannot be reconciled. So what do you do with that? And he said exactly what I thought he was going to say. I'd never thought about that. He didn't bend his knee right there and become a Christian. He still hasn't. But we're praying for him and we keep loving him and engaging with him. It was taking a moment where I didn't have an answer on the spot and turning it into another opportunity for a conversation.